Good afternoon. Welcome to the CABE webinar Wednesday for Wednesday the 13th of January. I understand that the timings have changed slightly, but hopefully those of you who are able to make it find the session enjoyable and informative. So bear with me 2 seconds. Most of you, if you have joined a webinar previously or managed to catch up on our YouTube channel, you will know who I am by now. My name is Jordan. I'm the Regional Student Services Coordinator at CABE. So part of my role is to facilitate these webinars, which is why I'm with you today. So you should know that we like to make these interactive with a Q&A session at the end. So if you're joining us live, you can send us your questions via the questions box. If you're watching on YouTube, you can email them through to me, so you can send them to the info@ email address, or you can email them directly to me at jordan.sutton@cboard.com. Obviously, we will go through a short Q&A at the end if we have any questions. If we have too many and it's getting a little bit long-winded, then I will send over the questions to Alan outside of the session, and I'll provide you all with a Q&A flyer via email. So as mentioned, the presenter for today is Allan Hurdle, Technical Consultant. Alan has already provided a webinar for us. Back in August, he delivered the Common Escape Routes in Apartment Buildings presentation, which went down very, very well. We had a very high number of attendants, and Alan has very kindly agreed to come back and deliver a second presentation for us. So if you didn't join us in August, I'll just go through a little info about Alan. So Alan has over 30 years experience of the HVAC industry in roles such as MD, VP and consultant to numerous companies across the sector. His role is raising the profile of the Smoke Control Association, its members and associated products throughout the UK. Alan is dedicated to promoting and raising awareness of fire and smoke control for all building types. In particular, this involves giving CPD presentations on HVAC product types and applications. So just a little background on the Smoke Control Association before I hand over to Alan. So the Smoke Control Association is an independent body involved in various aspects of smoke control, including design, CFD, manufacturing, install, commissioning, service and maintenance. Past projects include the publication of guides related to the design of smoke control systems and products. These guides also include methods for testing smoke extract fans, natural ventilators, smoke and fire dampers, smoke curtains and controls. So that is my part done for now. So I'm just going to hand over to Alan and he will take you through the presentation.
Show my screen. Okay, I hope, can you see my screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, all good.
That's great news. Okay then. Right, what I'll do, as I said to you, first of all, just to say that obviously welcome to this CIBSE approved CPD. And it is one of a number of training presentations that I give on behalf of companies such as Titan on metal air bricks, which we'll be going through today, the Smoke Control Association, which can be on the UCAS approved competence scheme for companies, as mentioned before, one on common escape routes, commissioning of smoke shafts, CFD design, and for car park smoke control designs, together with a company called Stamsol on the first non-combustible breather membranes behind cladding, which is obviously a flavour of the day. And finally, there's another one called Coricel Systems, which is the application of non-combustible smoke control spray to the perforated beams that may be over corridor escape routes where smoke plugs have been missed to be fitted. So I do now have a number of these presentations that I'm quite happy to give to the membership if you do the request. Thank you. So what are we doing today? So the learning objective obviously today is to give you an insight into the use of metal air bricks over plastic air bricks, and at times for both supply and exhaust within a building for various products that are used. And therefore, that's to show why a metal air brick is now required for smoke control to a class A2 S1DO over, as mentioned, the plastic scenario. And then to talk about why the building's approval document B should now be changed to actually only specify metal air bricks in buildings. And then I'll just show you the various test standards that a firebrick has to go through, and then practical layouts of how the brick to ducting go through and for consideration to be taken place. So what we're talking about is obviously a new concept in fire safety on the outside of a building rather than in the insides. Therefore, it is now no longer acceptable to say, I didn't know, it was too expensive, it was not in the building regs, so I didn't change it, etc. I mean, Dame Judith Hackett has made it very, very clear we should be doing the right thing now and not wait for legislation. And it's always now the development that lives of residents in buildings must always be considered when designing and developing building, from the fitting of sprinklers, from smoke control systems, fire doors, fire alarms, all the way down to simple things like the installation of metal air bricks in a cavity wall. Because any product that has the potential of catching fire can give off toxic smoke, hot droplets, and therefore is not acceptable. And it's not just the safety of the building occupants that has to be considered, but it's also the safety of the fire crews as well. An outer wall system of brickwork, thermal blocks, membranes, cladding, cavity, and the air brick are all part of what is considered to be the vertical wall system. And practically, they should achieve what is known as the Class A2 standard from the damp course upwards. So what we're looking at now is to look to actually say that non-combustible metal air brick should be used over those of combustible. So it's been developed as a CIBSI approved CPD, so you can obtain a document or a CPD certificate after this presentation. So air bricks have now been used as a ventilation product for below the damp course for a number of years, and it gives the ability to allow the flow of air to reduce or stop water and damp air to penetrate the four floor beams, plus the stopping of rot. In recent years, with development of in-house ventilation systems such as the MHRU, they actually have been used as an input or an extract air block into or out of the products. Because of the manufacturing process, plastic air bricks have been installed above the damp course without really understanding the problems that can result from the fire and the toxic fumes when they are ignited. So what are the air bricks? And what is an air brick? And what is its role in the outer wall system? These are used in conjunction with mechanical vent systems, which require supply and extract terminals through the external facade of the building. Class E and Class F and even Class B are combustible materials, and therefore they can catch fire and give off toxic fumes and hot droplets. If metal air bricks are made of a metal, which is an A1 class, and powder coated for rust protection, then they will meet the approval document B and the desire for a Class A2 specification. Metal air bricks, if designed and manufactured correctly, not only add to fire safety feature to a building, but they will also give a good and low resistance to the airflow required. Therefore, they can become a positive aid to the ventilation system and the building design. As mentioned, the development of a metal air brick took place following the Grenfell Tower tragedy, when it became clear that meeting the requirements of approval document B for a Class A2 external wall system was paramount. The Grenfell fire raised many concerns, especially the importance of fire safety improvements in meeting building regs. Combustible materials that make up the external fabric of a building, such as an air brick, would, after the Dame Judith Hackett report, have to be redesigned with a change of class. And this is because no longer is low price products, which are combustible, be the driver in pricing. This should always be about life safety. And that could imply that a product classed as combustible could still be allowed to be installed into certain building heights and therefore still fitted to the outside of the building. So that raises the questions about improving safety at lower heights for any building where people occupy premises day and night. The current building regs for high-rise buildings still consider building heights for 18 metres above, and this is being reviewed for safety structures, the different products and the different buildings. And the Right Honourable Robert Jenrick, Secretary of State, has stated that the height should be considered to be changed from 18 metres to 11 metres when we consider the reaction of fire on the external surfaces of walls. And now we all know that it's certainly now being changed with consideration for sprinklers. And we also know that an external wall system should meet a class A2 and less exempt. Now we'll show you some pictures about plastic and how the impact on building safety when ignited can contribute to the fire with toxic fumes via the wall cavity. So it is current practice that an air brick used below 11 metres can be of plastic or combustible material. A number of care homes actually have combustible air bricks fitted above the damp course at various floor levels for the airflow of an MVHR. And air bricks fitted into a building that is higher than 18 metres, and in mainland Europe actually it's 11 metres, is considered to be the norm and should be part of an A2 classification. And therefore is a position that shouldn't be ignored or misunderstood. That A2 air bricks are available and should be considered to be fitted in any wall system. We know this because safety in a building design and construction is the responsibility of all involved. This chart helps show the different classifications of an air brick from a class A through to class E. Well, class S1 is for smoke, and that's what it denotes, and is one of the highest. And DO is for hot droplets, and it shows within the EN 13501 standard. And therefore, a class E can still be made available, which is combustible, and therefore is a problem when it could come to the A and A1 for smoke, A1 for fire, S1 for smoke, and D for hot droplets. And here we can see the ignition and the fire dangers of a plastic air bricks. And this has been studied by the FPA, Fire Products Association or Fire Protection Association, and they've studied, tested and presented their findings independently. Dr. Jim Glocklin of the FPA carried out fire tests on plastic air bricks, and it demonstrated how quickly one of these vents, a plastic vent, can catch fire where he was using nothing more than a cigarette lighter, and that between 3 to 5 seconds the vent was alight. And what happened was the flames were gradually being pulled and sucked inwards and causing a much larger fire to take hold within a timber frame wall cavity. And therefore these photos show the damage and the ignition that can be caused between anything between 3 to 5 seconds under an independent test. So once alight, we end up with toxic fumes, fire, hot droplets, and these can all be pulled into the external part of the building or end up developing in somewhere else along the building itself. And this can be caused by the chimney stack effect of smoke being drawn through. So this can create a fire in other parts of the building. It can relate in smoke logging of internal rooms, and therefore could impact upon the means of escape for people in buildings and give visibility problems for the fire crews. The likelihood of a fire actually from an air brick is small, but quite frankly, it should not be a reason not to fit metal air bricks. So this chart was released by the Home Office in 2019, demonstrates the current fire-related fatalities. From 2011 to 2019, there's not seen a decrease in deaths, but a continued trend of between 250 to 300 fatalities per year. One death is obviously one death too many, no matter what the concern. There are many factors that can contribute to a death in a building, and many products that could actually contribute to it as well. But what we're saying is that we should consider a metal air brick and should always ask the question, are we fitting it? Has it been fitted? And is it fit for purpose? The Ministry of Housing and Communities, the local government with the health and safety departments and a number of the Dame Judith Hackett working groups are constantly looking into the causes of fires with the fire authorities. And then from this, they will then continue to propose updated regulations with guide in support of building safety. And as we keep emphasising, safety comes first with any building design where people are present. This just graph shows you the Home Office statistics relating to the inhalation of smoke. And of over 163,339 fires a year, that is staggering, as any fire can mean death. In 2019, that related to 252 deaths, with over 3,000 hospital treatments from smoke inhalation. In a fire, smoke is the biggest danger, and over 50% of deaths related to smoke inhalation. Now, we've still got a long way to go to get the building regulations changed, to change safety, because it's actually over 3 years now since Grenfell, and discussions and changes continue to take place. And there is a figure of over 2,000 buildings being suggested that will need recladding, over 352 that have been identified. So you then question, with these numbers of buildings, what other ignition products are fitted and have been installed. So we always say that the building industry needs further improvement measures put in place, and metal air bricks will help contribute towards the building safety. In 2018, Dame Judith Hackett, chair of the Rebus Expert Advisory on post-Grenfell, has said she welcomes changes within the fire ratings proposal for A2 S1 DO products. Dame Judith Hackett, author of the independent review, is constantly raising her concerns of another major tragedy in buildings. And we agree with her view, and this supports our view of using metal air bricks above damp crusts. Their comments demonstrate changes with compliance, which eventually lead to the golden thread from the start of design, utilising safe products with competent installation and installers. We cannot even estimate the number of buildings in the UK that have combustible plastic air bricks. So therefore, this could be another tragedy waiting to happen. Earlier in the year, or last year, the MHCLG opened a consultation questionnaire for consideration. They asked companies and organisations their proposed changes, approval document B, and their reasons. This consultation is obviously closed and still being reviewed to decide on what materials can be exempt from being a Class A2 and what ones should now be removed. As Titan, as a manufacturer of metal air bricks, they have actually requested via this questionnaire that air brick should be one of the considerations to have removed from non-combustible materials being exempt. We have obviously seen the current situation and shown the independent study of a development fire test by the FPA. And we've obviously seen and heard some of the views from prominent people in the building industry. It is unfortunate that metal air bricks are not being fitted, but there is an improvement and an increase now on metal air bricks being asked for in the building types. So we ask ourselves, is it sensible to continue to use an air brick with combustible materials? The answer to that is not really. Price should never be a driver over saving lives. We've seen and confirmed that products currently exempt from being a Class A2 in an external wall are now under review. And therefore it makes good practice to use a metal air brick for all building types, as they do offer resistance to fire and smoke and hot droplets. And being made of metal with a powder coating will make them part of a non-combustible outer wall system. And the metal air brick itself will meet the EN 13501 Part 1 fire classification standard. So, what makes a metal air brick? Well, they should be A2 compliant with the vertical wall system. And the building designers should ask themselves, is the air brick that I'm specifying resistant to fire? What materials is it constructed from? And if it's made of plastic, then we know they're combustible. If they're metal, we know they're not. When they're metal, they're an A1, but when we add the powder coating, that will give an A2 classification, which means a limited combustibility characteristic. And another question that a builder and an owner would ask, is the product corrosion resistant? Has it got a test certificate to the ISO 99227-2012? And is it rated to an EN 1670? Has it got a performance test certificate which offers low air resistance and therefore good airflow? And what is the size of the air brick I would need within my building? These are all questions that the building owner, and the building designer, and the builder should be asking themselves. And the good thing is that metal air brick can be easily connected to common internal duct sizes to any high-rise or residential building. So, if it is an inferior air brick without an ISO test or an EN quality standard, it can resist to air resistance that goes into your energy recovery unit. It will create, therefore, inadequate ventilation. Has it got possible acoustic issues that could create uncomfortable noise level? And if it is an incorrect design, it could lead to having to install a larger MVHR to be fitted to allow the correct airflow. So an air brick, although a simple product, has various implications that it has to go through to ensure it meets the specification it should be designed for with the products that surround it. We recommend that following certificates of performance should be made available, or declarations of performance. They should be made available from the air brick supplier to give confidence of the supplier and a part of the product portfolio for building owners. A building owner has a number of certificates that he should have made available to him. It includes performance test certificates, that it meets its supply and exhaust for a power vent system. Its corrosion resistance certificates. It has a steel supply certificate to meet in a Class A1 or an A2. It is manufactured, it's powder coated, and it has the manufacturer's certificate of the ISO 9001. So where do we see the different types of application of the air brick being used? Well, we know that they're used in a number of houses for domestic uses, care homes, apartment blocks, student accommodation, and even high-rise apartments. In fact, any building where air movement, either passive or mechanical is needed to draw air out or put air into a building is needed to meet these requirements for an air brick. This just shows typical layout of a system that would go to a mechanical ventilation and heat recovery system. It shows the air brick is fitted to the outside of a building to allow air to be drawn in and stale air removed. This one shows an MVHR and an MEV, or a mechanical extract vent unit, fitted with a duct run to the air brick. Sometimes the ducting is hidden under the ceiling tiles, so you can't see. In certain instances, there'll be plastic ducting, and certain instances, they could end up being metal ducting. Here you can see where the air brick fits through to the ductwork fitted via the cavity connectors, as these connectors can support and fit to various types and designs of a duct run. So extension connectors have to be available, covering both short, long and straight and angle bends when fitted through the cavity. And sometimes the actual ductwork is actually fitted above the ceiling as a cosmetic display when looked at from below. So selection of the extensions and the ductwork and the products and the heat recovery are really upon the architects and the building and the room designer together with the MEV locations. So spoke lengths and transformation pieces can also be produced and are dependent again on the building and the duct type. It is very, very important that a competent installer would use best practice with the best products when working on an installation. So here we can see obviously samples of the different types of ductwork and bends that can be arranged and fitted to an air brick. Approval document B states that vertical wall system above 18 metres should meet the Class A2 system unless fitted with combustible exempt components. So you ask yourself, is it really acceptable to have a combustible air brick fitted on each floor of a 3-storey care home of under just 18 metres? Now it can have 50 apartments, and each outer wall system could end up with a combustible air brick in the outer vertical wall system. So every floor, in theory, should have a metal air brick rather than a plastic one. Because we then ask ourselves, what's behind the air cavity? Is it a cavity vent only? Could there be combustible ducting, inappropriate air gaps through the wall cavity? So this could be a disaster waiting to happen. A version with external cladding instead of brickwork allows the product to be installed through a variety of different building skins. And here it shows you the different types of air brick that can be available at different widths and different types. But all these air bricks now are available as metal rather than in plastic. There is a full range of variant accessories now available for a builder, so he's got no excuse himself to say, well, I could go for metal air brick, but I haven't got the attachment pieces that go with it. But all these are available that will go through the cavity and fix to the internal ductwork within a system. So you ask yourself, would this really and should this have passed a building inspector? So I said, was this a design spec, or did the builder put it in there as his own signature? Is it really competent? Did it comply? So sometimes you ask yourself, you get what you pay for. So post Grenfell tragedy, fire safety questions continue to be raised relating to building designs and the products used to support the safety of occupants. Approval document B continues to be updated as new products become available. And part of my role is to ensure that everybody knows or understands the changes in the availability of non-combustible products that are now coming out into the industry. Products that are used both externally and internally, if they're not Class A2, are being questioned as technology progresses. any building, as mentioned, where people live and work, no matter what the building height, are being investigated for building safety. So we say that because there's been no major fire from a combustible air brick, but does it make them really fit for purpose? So I would recommend that metal air bricks should be fitted to any building where air is drawn in or extracted out via the building cavity, as the safety of building occupants must not be jeopardised, and any area where we can contribute to fire control must be looked at. Finally, taking the point about what is right and what is wrong, on the 20th of July on the 2020, the Ministry of Housing and Community issued its draft building safety bill. And the key point is for companies linked to the building safety industry. There is a potential for a 2-year prison sentence for those persons proved not to be considered or considering building safety. So one always asks themselves, we should always be doing the right thing at the right time. And recently, we know that the BS have introduced what is considered to be the Flex BS 8670 for competence of individual builders has come through, as well as the Smoke Control Association's competence for whole building system design. So this is being reviewed, and with BS and UCAS and the Ministry of Housing and the 12 working groups, building safety is becoming a paramount condition of what occurs. So thank you for that. If there's any questions, then please let me know.
Thank you, Alan. So I'm just going to give people a couple of minutes just in case they're typing in their questions at the moment. So if I make myself the presenter again, then we can just go on to the little question slide.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give people a couple of minutes just to send in any questions that they may have. In the meantime, I'm just going to mention a few things from HQ. So firstly, our regional AGMs are well underway. We are holding them virtually for the first time and they are going very well. Attendance numbers are high. So far we've had Southern and Wales, but if there is anyone in any of the remaining regions who would like to attend theirs, then all the information is on our website. We kick off again with East Midlands, which is tomorrow from 6 p.m. Also, hopefully you've seen by now, but we do also now hold up most of our courses virtually. Obviously with COVID restrictions, we're unable to open up HQ at the moment, so all of them are being held online. Again, information can be found on our website. Thirdly, hopefully as well, you may have seen that HQ is undergoing its refurbishment. So we do send out updates as and when we have new information to share or new pictures. But we are hoping that restrictions will ease after it is completed and we'll be able to welcome our members back. So I'm just going to have a look into the questions panel and see whether we've had any questions sent in. Okay, so we've had a few come in, Alan, so I'm just going to start with this one. Can the air brick be galvanised instead of powder coated? I'm hoping that makes sense to yourself.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I understand. The answer to that is yes, you can. But in terms of cosmetically reviewing, the powder coated is the current recommended process by the manufacturers. But ideally, what you'd then effectively have, if you did galvanise it, you'd be in a position of having a full A1 specification air brick. The thing with an air brick, what you have to be careful, particularly when you galvanise, that you could end up with blockage of the various holes that that creates the airflow. So stay galvanised, but what then they would then say is, well, let's spin galvanise it to ensure that the holes don't get blocked. But the better solution is to have it powder coated.
Okay, lovely. So next we've got how good is the powder coating and the steel beneath, as chipping of paint is likely to occur during installation?
Okay, because powder coating is different to wet powder, wet paint. If you get wet powder or wet paint process, then you can get the chipping, and what you'll effectively end up with is with a primer. You'd have to clean it, primer it, and put a top coat on, and that does effectively give you a particular issue and a problem of damage to the paint. The powder coat itself is a hardening material and therefore is fire resistant. And as I mentioned to you, steel itself would be classed as an A1, but with the powder coating process, it drops it slightly down to an A2, so it's still non-fire or minimum combustible. In mainland Europe, A1 and A2 are considered as being totally non-combustible. Here in the UK, we call an A2 as giving limited combustibility, which is what the, as I mentioned, to approval document B for the outer wall system is considered to be what is required as an outer wall system, A2.
Brilliant, thank you. So then someone is asking about the price comparison between the two types of bricks, so between the metal and the plastic air bricks.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, a plastic air brick is cheaper than a metal air brick. So you will end up having to pay more for the metal air brick, slightly more, probably about 40% more than a plastic. The big difference, of course, is we're talking here about life safety. Where the big driver, and we know what's going on, is not a race to the bottom on price. And in fact, the value of the air bricks in comparison to the whole build is quite minimal compared to the whole building costs. So the recommendation is always going to be that use the best product that's going to give you the best life safety support.
Lovely, thank you, Alan. So we've got a couple coming in. We've got a few longer ones, so what I might do is send them over to you separately, Alan, and then we can provide the individuals with their answers. So I'm just going to ask a couple more. Excuse me if I don't pronounce anything correctly, because a lot of these words I don't deal with on a daily basis. So we've got, should the plenum box attaching to the air brick also be fire rated for a building over 18 metres?
The answer to, in my position, I'd say ideally, yes, it should have an independent test that it has fire rating coupled to it. As I mentioned to you, you've got the air brick is on the outside of the building, and then what you'll tend to do, if it's below the damp course, it's just an air brick. If it's above the damp course, and examples have been where people have dropped cigarettes by the air brick into leaves, have caught fire and pulled air through into, and then it's caught fire as hot air can ignite itself. So you'd end up with a metal extension piece from the air brick through the cavity into the ducting or the plenum box that's inside the building. So the answer to that is anything that we can do to save lives and make non-combustible is what we should be doing. So that's the answer to that one.
Okay, lovely. I'm just going to ask one more for now, and then I'll send everything out separately. So we'll finish off with, is the current situation, like with everything that's going on at the moment, is it affecting the availability of these metal air bricks?
The answer to that is no. The reason is that most manufacturers are still working out there and not have availability of stock availability within the company. This metal air brick that I've spoken about today, for example, you can check on the Titan website and they do have the product available, manufactured and in stock, and there's no problem regarding availability.
Brilliant, thank you, Alan. So with that, like I say, I'll send all of the questions over to you anyway, and hopefully we can put together a little Q&A flyer that I can send out to everyone who has been watching today.
Okay, that's good.
So obviously just want to thank Alan again for joining us. This is actually the third time because Alan presented during the Southern AGM last week as well. It's great to be working with you, and hopefully everyone finds your presentations informative. And I'm sure we can get you booked in for the others that you offer as well. Everyone who's managed to log on today, thank you for doing so. I hope, despite restrictions, that you all managed to have an enjoyable break over Christmas. And hopefully New Year will make things slightly easier once these COVID restrictions are eased slightly. As an association, we are always here to help. So if there is anything that we can do, please do get in touch. But with that, if there are any other comments or questions, etc., just send them over to me and I will follow up with Alan outside of the session. But again, thank you for joining us today, and I will see you all online again very soon.
Thank you.